Welcome, everybody. It's Dr. Doug Pernikoff of Dr. Doug's All Things Animal Radio Show, and I'm here with my wonderful and beautiful guest host, Cindy Vickers, who is our great trainer as well, and a longtime animal advocate. And our very special guest is Mr. Alan Jones, who is the president and co-owner of Kennelwood Pet Resorts, which we've all experienced in some form. And you've been with the group for how long? How many years?
Well, I started in 1976.
Wow.
When I came on board.
I was going to say I wasn't even born yet, but I was, unfortunately.
But certainly he was not the president and co-owner then. So
no, that's good. We're going to ask.
It has sordid past.
Well, we want to ask his story for sure. I just want to go ahead and say hi to the audience.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm sure there's all dog and cat lovers and pet lovers out there. So.
Actually, just dogs and cats are listening. The others, they put them on there. We're entertainment.
Sugar gliders. No, sugar gliders.
Well, it's great to have you, Alan. Of course, we've known each other, for years and years. I'm a veterinarian, and actually I work right down the sidewalk from one of the Kennelwood programs, and they do principally some training and a lot of grooming there, if I understand correctly.
We have 8 locations. 4 of them are full service, where we do grooming, boarding, training, pet supplies, invisible fence, daycare, photography. Mm-hmm. That location is what we call a fetch location. Uh-huh. So you can drop your dog off for any of those services except for overnight boarding. For overnight boarding, we just transfer the pet to the closest location.
And with your own service, right?
Yes, we have our own vans that are fetch vans that run around town with the dog on top.
Oh yeah,
we have a kvetch. We have a kvetch van. That's what we have.
But have you ever seen the vans? I mean,
I see one every day
with that big giant golden retriever lab on top.
Yeah, it's great. So that's really neat, and I'm really appreciating for you to come and share your story, and also maybe we'll start a little bit with the Kennelwood story. But do you want to give the audience some contact information? We'll give it again later in the show, but I think it's good to repeat. So if people want to find out about your services, your website, or a phone number, whatever you think is appropriate.
Great. Well, the mainline number is 314-429-2100. And they could call that number and then be transferred to any of the stores. We have a call center that makes reservations also. So,
how about your website? Is that something you could share with us?
www.kennelwood.com.
Okay.
And we're on Facebook. We're on all the social media sites also.
Yeah, it's an amazing, your home location. Go back. You said you had 8 locations. Principal one is still up off of Page
and Lindbergh.
Okay.
The road is Crack Key Road, which that's just 1 block east of Lindbergh.
Okay.
And that was built in 1974.
Okay.
That was built by Don Danforth, the Danforth family, Ross and Pernikoff family.
Sure.
And his son Chris works with us still. And so the family's been involved from the beginning.
Was that because of a particular love for dogs, or were they hunting people, or how did they get into the dog thing?
Don did like to do duck hunting, but no, being with Ross and Pernikoff at the time, I think he just saw a need for a pet hotel in St. Louis, and
services.
It's kind of neat when I look back at the stuff from 1974, and when it opened, there were newspaper articles and things like that, and at that time we air conditioned just one of our wings, and the comment was most homes in St. Louis don't have air conditioning.
Oh, that's probably true.
So the dogs weren't used to it. You can't imagine that now. But that's funny. Everything's air conditioned now. But
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I remember I've seen some older kennels in my time that were kind of just lingering on, and then they all disappeared. But they were just outside a run. Right. It was horrible. You could smell urine. I mean, you can't get away with those things today.
No,
obviously.
absolutely not.
It's my old stomping ground. So I did boarding training there. I taught 1 million classes. I trained for invisible fence. And
people are still complaining?
No. We still have complaints daily.
Did I not say I had the highest
Whatever you do,
retention
don't
rate?
bring that Cindy back, please.
No, I had so much fun teaching class there. I really did. I mean, I met such wonderful people, and I think the reason I had such a high retention rate is because we laughed so hard in my classes. But in any case, people used to come there, and I wonder
laughing at you or with you?
Come on.
I know you're good.
People would come, and they'd be from all over the country, because this was really the premier site, the really forward-thinking kennel, and they'd come and just do these observations to see like what they could possibly do if they could, I guess, get the revenue to build like really cool things. But Kennelwood really was the trendsetter, and I think it's possible that they still might be. Is that true, Alan?
Well, we try to stay ahead of the game. Yes,
That's a tough one. Yeah,
we always look for new services to offer. And it was kind of interesting in my career because as a father, we had a child, and everything I did with her, I'd take back and do at the kennel. An example was the first time I took her to have her picture taken with Santa Claus. I just thought that was the greatest thing in the world, just watching her up there with Santa Claus and getting her picture taken. So I went and talked to Don about that and said, you know what we ought to do? We ought to offer pictures with Santa Claus for dogs. Well, he laughed for about 5 minutes, and he said, Alan, if you want to do that, go ahead, but I don't think... That's
really popular.
Yeah, I don't think you'll get anyone. And that first year, we got like 150 families to come out, so that was well above what we...
What did he say?
He said, good idea.
Let me just step back and you do this. So tell me about the other locations. They're not all full service, or they all
right.
are?
There are four full service. That's our Page and Lindbergh location. We're in St. Peter's. We're on Mason Lane, which is right off of Manchester Road, just west of 270.
Okay.
And we had what we call a fetch location in South County, where we converted that into a full-service facility just last year.
In South County?
It's on Baptist Church Road.
Oh, so it's just down the road.
Down the road, yeah.
And so we had a guest a little while back.
trainers
Leo was on,
Yeah,
and
Leo.
he's at that South County location. And then Sue Schultz, who is really a friend of mine, who's been, oh my God, I don't even know how long Sue's been at Kennelwood, but she does a lot of the in-home training, and she sort of is one of the forces behind this big event. Oh my gosh. I can't remember the name of it now, but I mean, they had it at South County maybe a month or so ago, and there's all kinds of dogs that come for adoption and training.
The adoption day?
Yeah, I mean, but there were many, many, many events, so I'm not doing it justice in this conversation I'm having now.
Right.
But that's,
I don't want to scare anybody in the audience, but I'm looking around the room here, and I think between the three of us, we're over 100 years of experience. People always say that. And I'm the youngest. Cindy,
you are not.
So anyway, but that's kind of funny.
But we're all very close, as a matter of fact, in age. Yeah.
That's really scary. Are there enough talent to take over where we are?
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, I have a question for Alan, but except I know that he is not going to answer this, but maybe you could give us just a little hint. So in talking about being, the kennel, the cool kennel, is there anything that's on the horizon that's coming that would be something unexpected or a service that we've not heard of yet? I already know the answer.
I promised he wasn't going to have to answer things
Well,
like
you
that.
don't have to say what it is. Is there anything?
There is something on the horizon, and it involves human health, pet health.
I so want to
They're
be involved
hiring
in that.
me? I've been waiting for years.
I bet you once a week I have this conversation in my head about something that's sort of philanthropic and outreachy in the community that involves Kennelwood. I really do. So I'm going to take some guesses on what that is. But
well, let me ask you, because I'm pretty sure you train people too, right, for grooming and all that. Which programs are training programs?
Well, we train our own groomers, and that's because years ago, if you lost a groomer, you were short-handed, and it was difficult to find good groomers. And so we just decided, probably 20 years ago, the best way to do this is to hire bather brushers, and then from the bather brushers, the one who showed an interest and who were competent, and we would train them to become a stylist, and we still do that. And that program... Jan Mound, who's been a dog groomer in St. Louis probably for 50 years, she runs that program for us at one of our locations.
Wonderful.
And
is that Bruno
It is
snoring?
Bruno snoring.
Yeah, it's not me.
dog.
It's not me.
Dr. Doug's dog is here. He's really essentially at my feet, and he's
I'm so
snoring.
sorry, audience. You're going to have to tolerate it, but he's the mascot here.
Yeah, and you're always talking about doing due diligence before you get a pet. So if you want to get a French Bulldog, this is what you can expect.
Well, coming out the front end is okay. It's the stuff that comes out the back end.
Wow.
In bed.
Well, I'm talking about doing due diligence. We have the pet matchmaker at Kennelwood.
Oh, do you really?
Oh, yeah, Patty the pet matchmaker. Her only job is when someone calls, says, I'm thinking of getting XYZ, she'll say, here's a list of breeders. Or if someone calls and says, I'm thinking of getting a dog, I don't know what I should get. Mm-hmm. What do you suggest? Then she has a list of questions, and she'll make some recommendations on, here's some breeds that could work for you. Yeah. Here's some breeders, go out and talk to them. Mm-hmm. Or if there's a dog show coming up, she knows when and where all the dog shows are. She'll send prospective new pet owners to the dog shows.
Well, my clinic, I've sent dozens of people up to look at your thing for new pet choices and stuff. So it's a great tool. I didn't think about it, but it's obvious it would be everywhere. So that's good. So you train for in-house grooming. Do you do for your trainers and your daycare trainers? Do you provide that as well?
Well, our daycare staff is trained, and they work with the trainers. The trainers will work with each day camp person so that they can understand body language. Mm-hmm. Let me back up a little bit. When they first come on, we have a new hire orientation, and Sue Schultz, who's one of our trainers, mm-hmm. and also trains our employees, she does a series of lessons with them, teaching them how to read body language, mm-hmm. but then it gets continued with the training department. In our training department, we like to hire, we actually hire a lot from Tom Rose School of Dog Trainers here in St. Louis. And what we kind of feel like we do is they're good trainers. We teach them how to work with people and how to be personable.
That's a rough area.
You've got you've got the dog, but you've got the person too.
So do you focus on like the the good citizen doggy training, or do you do what's the other one we were talking about, the fear-free or the
No.
It's different.
No, we want to talk about that one.
Okay, good.
You can tell me. I don't know if I think I have a fairly good handle on what happens in Kennelwood training now, but I think that this is a pretty serious group of trainers, and so they're looking. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is the impression that I have. So mm-hmm. Tell me if that I'm one of the people who are not there now, and I'm wrong. But I would think that the outcome that they want is that when that client comes back, either to get the dog from boarding training or if they're having experience doing private training, mm-hmm. that they really feel like they got results. Like the dog they're going to call it a climb, but gets on a bed like when the doorbell rings, and it's got a really reliable downstay and is walking nicely on a leash and a good coming and call. But I mean, they're like, yeah, we really want to do this, not mm-hmm. like play.
Mm-hmm.
We had you're right, you're very, probably 10 years ago, 12 years ago, we used to just do classes where people would come, we'd teach the person how to train their dog. But one of the things we really were disappointed is how many people would say, oh, my dog failed. He didn't fail, I failed, I didn't do the work. And so we just decided, okay, we're going to do the work. And then we're going to bring the owner in after we've got the dog trained, because we want every dog. Someone says, who trained your dog?
Right.
And they say, Kennelwood. We want it to be a well-trained dog.
So after whatever the training period is for a specific dog, then you bring the owner in for another length of time? Is it standard or is it customized?
We bring the owner in for private lessons, and it's customized because some owners want more in-depth training, and some just have a issue that they want the issue solved.
Sure.
So we'll listen to them, and then we'll bring them in and set up a program for mm-hmm. them.
So we've talked about either basic training versus behavioral issues, and I know that some people specialize in this or that, but you kind of do the whole package.
Right. We have Sue for behavioral issues, and then we have our trainers, and they can handle behavioral issues also. But Sue will do more if it's something that you really need to be in the owner's home to solve the problem, that Sue takes care of that.
So you do home service?
We do home service, too.
Oh, okay, great.
She's very good, too.
Yeah.
And I know her, personally, and she's very, very good. I just want to give just a little bit of support to that, though. But because, I deal with this whenever I work with a dog, and generally I say, I'll teach the dog how to do the down. I'm going to do it. I'll do the sit. I'll do all of this. So the dog is... has an idea how to do it, and then you hand the dog off to the owner and you become their coach. So essentially, and then you work with them until they can take the reins. But when they have to start from ground zero, sometimes it's just overwhelming, and people are like, I don't.
And do they
can't even.
Go ahead, Alan.
Well, because the dog has to learn, but the person isn't competent yet.
Right.
So he or she is trying to accomplish something they're really not good at. So by doing what we do and what you just described, the dog gets the training. Now all the handler has to do is don't screw it up.
Right. Sure.
do it right.
Well, we have a problem in veterinary medicine with compliance for anything. And, I mean, I'm sure it's the same thing that people get all excited, and then all of a sudden, they're not doing what they're supposed to do. So do you have a follow-up available? So if people come back and say in 3 months, this isn't quite working right, or we just want to tone up your training program, is that part of a normal?
We have a number of programs. We have where you can just come back for a refresher, and we really recommend that. That depending on the dog, you might want to come back once every 6 months.
Sure.
Get everything back to where it was in the beginning.
Sure.
Some dogs are good from the time they leave, but others need refreshing. And then we have something called train and play, so they can bring them in for day camp. And get training that day. We have a lot of clients who bring their dogs every day for day camp.
Right.
But then once a week they'll say, "Go ahead and train them today too."
So the owners could stay and do some work with the trainer too on a.
Well, they would usually drop it off, and then when they pick it up, the trainer would do some work with them.
Good. We're going to stop for just a moment, take a break, but I want to thank Alan. It's great information so far. We're having a good time, and even Cindy's behaving, so it's great. So Dr. Doug Pernikoff, Cindy Vickers, Alan Jones from Kennelwood will be back in just a moment with Dr. Doug's All Things Animal Radio Show. Thanks for listening. Welcome back. We're entering into another segment with our special guest, Alan Jones from Kennelwood Pet Resorts, and we've learned quite a bit already. But I wanted to ask Alan in particular, can you tell a little bit more about your history? Because I think Cindy told me one time you started as a trainer.
Yes.
Is that right?
Well, I started as a groomer.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Groomer.
No, back it up. I started as a trainer. Cindy's right. You remembered better than I did.
Shocker.
Every day we're here, she says, Alan Jones.
I do. Maybe I do.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I got a German Shepherd, and I was in my early 20s, and I thought, I want to train this dog. I had never trained a dog before. So I took him to training classes here in St. Louis. We graduated. Fortunately, he was a flashy dog.
Was that Judy Strickland way back then?
Well, Judy Strickland was a Kennelwood.
Oh, was she?
Yeah, that's who I apprenticed with about 1,000 years ago.
I mean, I knew her as an independent trainer for a long time.
Well, it was Mound City Training Club here in St. Louis. And he was a flashy dog. And in other words, some dogs will obey, but they mope along, and they're not. But his tail was up and his head was up.
A lot of style.
And he was pranced. He had a lot of style.
Yeah.
So it made me look good as a trainer.
That's what you want to do. That's why Trump married Marianne. What's her name?
Melania.
It makes him look good.
Yes, it does.
Or bad.
Well, I mean, he's got those little hands, so we know he's going to. Anyway, back to the subject.
Anyway, yes. So anyway, then I started competing in obedience trials. And,
You did? I did not know that.
Well, that was before
with this
you knew
particular
me.
dog.
With this particular dog, and I said I want to work in this dog industry. What is the industry? And then I started looking around. I actually went down to the library in downtown St. Louis and just started researching what kind of careers could you have in the industry.
And back then, there
wasn't much of an industry back then.
And that's why he's the leader. He made his own.
But I did see grooming and training information, and Dog World magazine had advertisements for schools. So I went to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I learned how to groom dogs.
Wow.
And my plan was to come back to St. Louis and eventually open my own kennel, but I worked for 2 different kennels here in St. Louis, and then went to Chicago, and then went to Phoenix, and then went to Arlington, Texas.
To live and work, or for training exercises?
to get different jobs at larger facilities that offered more services. So it was like going to college. It's like I made my own college.
It was an applied college.
I just kept going and learning more and more. And when I came back to St. Louis, I came back just to explore and see if there was anything in St. Louis. And I went to one kennel owner, and he said, I don't have anything, but you should go to Kennelwood. They've opened a really big place, and maybe he has a position for you. So I went there, and
were the Danforths actually managing it at that time?
No, he had a manager.
Okay.
And I met with the manager, and then she said, you need to meet with Mr. Danforth. I said, great. And I did. And so he hired me to be her assistant and do training, and started training. At that time, it didn't have a training program. Started training program, oversee grooming, and just help her in any way I could. So after he hires me, she comes to me and says, I'm leaving.
Good.
Yeah. Oh, that's a shame.
Oh, what a shame.
She and her husband, they were going out to Phoenix to open an ice cream store. So she had a meeting with Don, and then he had a meeting with me. And
how long were you there before that transition?
It was a 2-week transition.
Oh my God!
I was the first day I got there. She told me she's leaving.
Okay, so what part was the scariest? You're like, okay, I think I know how to train the dogs, but I just said yes, and here's all the things I don't know.
Now this is a big business, you know.
Well, I felt I was ready.
Oh, of course you did.
Well, that's right. You had been through multiple levels.
It wasn't like I just came out of school. I had worked 2 years at
but
facilities.
still, there had to be something you're like, this is the part that I'm the least confident about. This is like a job interview, Alan. Like, what would they say? You have to say a weakness.
We're men. We don't always feel that way. I'm ready to jump into anything.
You could be ready to jump in, but there's still got to be a part that you're like, I'm going to have to really
if there
study
isn't,
this
Alan,
part.
there isn't. You know.
No, I really felt like
You were
get
ready.
up early, work late,
Yeah.
Do the job, get it done.
How many hours do you think you put in the first couple of years?
Well, that was interesting too. Part of the deal was there was an apartment with the kennel, so I moved into the apartment. So it was 24 hours a day.
It was 24 hours.
It really wasn't. But I could check on the dogs, later in the evening, and first thing in the morning. People were moving around, and dogs
Did you
were
have to
barking.
do everything? Human resources? Did you start doing everything? Hiring and firing and all that stuff?
Firing, he's good at that.
Cindy, get over it.
I don't think you were fired.
No. What happened that wasn't good? Tell us one of those stories you're like, oh my God, I cannot believe this was one of those crazy dog or cat stories. I know you've got like 1,000.
Well, we did have a cat that was able to get out of its cage, and we couldn't find it. It had got up in the ceiling tile.
Oh my God.
So we found it, but you talk about panic. I mean, where did this cat go? Who stole the cat?
Yeah. And whose cat is it?
Well, we know whose cat it was. But so that was one of those high stress.
How many days to recover?
How many days
to recover?
To recover? Oh, it was a day. I mean, we were.
So I have to tell you one story at my clinic. So I had one of the Bush family has monkeys. So I do monkeys. So they bring the monkey in, and I have to sedate it to do some workup.
You shouldn't say I do monkeys.
That's true.
Ew.
Wait a minute. Let me explain to my wife.
Look
We're
at
not
the
referring
time.
to you, honey. But anyway, so I have this little monkey that's owned by one of the Bushes, and you don't want to mess that up, right? So I got it in the room. He's jumping around. He's scared to death of me, and he got out of his cage before I could grab him. And he gets up high next to the ceiling tiles, and he's like this, and he pushes up for support, and he sees it goes up. And I go, oh my God. And you could just see that moment, and the monkey goes like this, pushes it up and jumps, and now he's in this we're in a strip center.
Somewhere in the strip center.
Somewhere in the high level that's connected, unit to unit to unit to unit. And I'm going, what do we do? What do we do? So thankfully I left the cage open and left the tile down, and he just left the room, and he came back and went back in his cage. But I'm thinking, how do I explain that to Mr. Bush?
Okay, I have to tell you one quick Kennelwood story. So I was doing boarding training at the time, and somebody had, I can tell Alan now, and they dropped off.
Now you tell.
No, it actually, well, it's just my first thought process that might be not too thrilling. Anyway, the dog that they had was a kind of an overweight, big chocolate lab, which is not one of my favorite dogs at all. And so I'm like, ugh. So I go to see the dog, and what I don't like is how they're bulldozers. And of course, the very first thing I go to, this is back in the day when we had the runs and, they're in the cages. So I go to open the door. Of course, she's just like, boom, pushing her way out. I'm like, this is exactly what I don't like about these dogs, but it's okay. It's my job. So I get a phone call maybe 2 days later, and it just so happens that the two kids were home, the parents were on vacation. I mean, they were like 19, and they wanted to come see the dog. And I was like, oh, for the love of God, seriously, the dogs, this is the second day here. There's not any magic going to see. Anyway, the kids come in, and I work for special school district, and one of the boys is quite obviously special needs. And I immediately thought, I don't care what it takes. This dog is getting trained while it's here. Okay, so fast forward, but we're really just doing, walking on the leash and sitting down and stay, stuff like that. It was only there for 5 days. But really, 5 days. There's a limit to what you can do. They go home and they call me. What did you do with this dog? I'm like, oh, I don't know.
What are they going to say?
They're like, how did you get her to not leave the yard? I was like,
You traumatized the heck out of her.
I'm that good. I have no idea, but when she went home after being there, he said, I can come out, I can wash my car out in the driveway. She comes out in the front. She does not leave the yard. She's perfect. I was like, this is a miracle.
I'm sending my children to you next.
They thought I was like the greatest trainer ever. Have no idea why that happened. Had absolutely nothing to do with me.
I think you evoked so much fear into the dog.
No, I didn't. I was so enamored with that kid that I just became friends with the family after that.
Okay, so I'm really intrigued. We just got a few minutes before this next segment, but I want to get started. I'm really intrigued in the kind of the evolution of the daycare concept, because it's such a logical concept, but it's fairly new, isn't it, Alan?
Well, it's fairly new.
In Bosnia,
85.
no.
It was 85. That Oh, I didn't realize it's been that long.
And that was interesting because in the boarding kennel industry, you never put two dogs from two different families together. That was taboo.
Liability was
right,
too great.
Yeah. And so when this started, it really started with the trainer out in Colorado who had training classes at night, and she wanted to use her space for something during the day. So she started letting her training students bring their dogs and do day camp. And it grew, and I heard about it. And I said, well, if this works, it's great, but this is
scary.
Yeah, this was scary to me to do. So we started with very small groups, and we had done daycare before where people could drop their dogs off, but they would just stay in the kennel. Once we started letting dogs play together, it just exploded, and now every city in the country has daycare centers all over the place for dogs.
And then that led into the dog parks, I think, when there was a realization that you could put these dogs together.
Yeah.
Well, was Kennelwood the first place to have the suites? I mean,
Again,
in St. Louis.
In St. Louis.
Yeah.
And we were the first ones to do day camp, our doggy day camp in St. Louis, too. When we started it, we started advertising. We had to explain what doggy day camp was because it didn't exist at that point.
Right.
And then the suites, whenever I went to travel, I would stop and look at other kennels to see what they might have that we didn't have.
Sure.
And I went into a place that had suites with televisions and beds, and then, that's a great idea.
I think the next step is going to be that people will be allowed to sleep over with the pets.
Now, I have an idea there, Doug.
Okay. We're going to take a real quick break, and we'll be back, continue talking with our wonderful guest, Alan Jones from Kennelwood, and of course, Cindy Vickers, our wonderful co-host, and myself, Dr. Doug Pernikoff of the Clarkson Wilson Veterinary Clinic. We'll be back in just a moment. Thanks for listening.
Alone in the world was a little cat dog.
Well, welcome back, folks. We're in segment 3, and we're visiting today again with Alan Jones the president and co-owner of Kennelwood Pet Resorts, and they've been around. He's telling us an amazingly interesting story. And as I was talking in the break with him and Cindy, Alan's been in this business for so long, he's had to really kind of lay the groundwork, make the mistakes, suffer the good and bad of it. And you just can't value that experience. And a lot of people come in and they try and jump in and do something similar, but you can't put those years a price on it. And it's really useful for you. But you started to ask a question for Alan?
Yeah, Maybe I'm misremembering, but I think we were like at a meeting, like it was the whole kennel meeting, and the conversation was like trying to deal with the dog that is aggressive in the run. Like, how do you feed them and what you do? And you may have a story about that, like how you handle it. Do you?
I do. Yeah.
Okay, let me tell that story. Whatever.
I guess the story turns into a policy, right? A standard policy.
Right.
Go ahead.
The policy is get someone more experienced than you.
Good point. Or big gloves.
Or braver.
And then what I discovered is once you can touch a dog,
mm-hmm.
you can make a connection.
Mm-hmm.
So I put a brush
mm-hmm.
on a stick.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had an aggressive dog, just open the gate enough to get in there and start brushing their back, talking to them.
Mm-hmm.
Before long, they calm down. They let you put a leash on them. You can do that with the stick, too.
My wife used to offer those services, but no more.
And once you have a leash on a dog and you've calmed him down,
mm-hmm.
There's risk involved.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying that he's becomes Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but he does calm down, and he'll usually let you walk him to wherever you need to take him.
Well, see, I have told this, I know, at least once or twice on the air, but as a veterinarian, I have that same dilemma. You don't know what's coming in the door. People always say, well, my dog would never bite. I said, yeah, but you're not sticking needles in his butt. I am. But I found very quickly, and I'm not a behavioralist, but it was obvious that if you separate the owner from the dog, number one, that's really important, because then the territorial relationship, whatever it is out of the way. Then I always try and take the dog on. I said, give me your lead with the dog, walk out of the room, and then I sit down or I start walking with the dog. Mm-hmm. And once you're leading them on a lead, it's a different game. And I had one quick story I'll repeat. I had this big hound dog that came in, and the lady looked at me. It was a new client, and she says, this is a very aggressive dog. Be careful. So I did this. I said, well, let me have the dog. So she did over the table, reached over, and she left, and I walked the dog, and I went outside with him, inside. I was actually able to sit down, take his blood by myself. I put a tourniquet on, do his heartworm exam, do his shots, and I took him back in, and then I handed it back to the owner. All of a sudden, the dog looked at me and went, "Rrr." I couldn't get near the dog again.
Yeah.
But it does work a great number of times if you just think common sense, read the dog. That's really important to work with these dogs. Most of it's fear, I think, right? Just fearful.
Right. And if you make a connection, and like if the dog bit at the
pole or something.
I'd just let it bite at it, and it would eventually stop.
Yeah.
And just keep brushing.
Right.
And before long, it's like, okay, what do you want to do?
Kind of like dogs, cats, kids. The more excited they get, the calmer you get. I mean, really directly proportionally to that.
Why is it the groomers seem to have... there's something about groomers. They can handle dogs better than anybody I've ever seen on a regular, consistent basis.
Yeah, but keep in mind, they have all kinds of tools that they use. Like there's contraptions that you can put them in to keep their back end up, and oftentimes they muzzle dogs while they're working with them, or they have like sort of a slip leash. It's really like a leash, but that's around their neck, and so it can at least keep their head in the front of their body while they're working on the back, so they just can't whip around. So
I still think they have a demeanor or a confidence that is different than the average, even in the service industry of pets.
I think you might be right.
Do you have any feeling about that? Or?
I think some groomers do, yes, because they're just used to handling so many dogs.
Right,
They're grooming 8-10 dogs every day.
Right.
5 days a week, so 50 dogs.
Yeah, it's
a lot of dogs.
A lot of dogs. That's very interesting.
The word muzzle, sometimes people take that as a negative.
Right.
It's not a negative. It's just a safety device.
Same as crates.
Right, exactly. If your dog doesn't like to have its nails trimmed, it's a whole lot better to put a muzzle on the dog.
Sure.
Trim the nails, and if he tries to bite a groomer's not going to get bit.
Right.
So,
just
that point.
Right, yeah. You don't want that to be like a method that they have of
Right.
not getting brushed or getting their
And
nails done.
again, as I with crates, I mean, my dogs would be, because my wife and I both worked, and we'd come home, we'd release them out and play with them, whatever, go outside. But there were individuals would just go right back in their crate if they were tired, because it wasn't punishment, it was a husbandry tool. Mm-hmm. And that's what you got to teach people, that these are.
Yes.
So what's the big, I don't know how to say this delicately, but what's really the biggest moneymaker? Is it boarding?
Dog boarding.
Yeah.
Daycare is pretty good, too.
Daycare is good also. Any service that you can do multiple dogs with one employee. Mm-hmm. It's going to be more profitable than grooming, where you need one employee to do all the work.
That makes sense.
And being a groomer can be a decent
living. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it can. If you have to get good, but it's like everything else. You don't make the most profit when you're learning and you're not very good at it. But when you get good and you're reasonably fast, but also you have people who really want to come back to you.
It's a tough profession, though. I mean, it wears people out. I had a little grooming shop years ago, and I mean, they work their butts off, and they wear out.
And they get carpal tunnel and things like that. But I think that there's a lot of people that are really drawn to it. I mean, they don't want to be sitting at a desk, and they don't want to be doing a lot of writing papers or having too much interaction with people. They want to, right. It absolutely. They are artists, and they like being with the animals, and they much prefer to do that than a lot of the alternatives.
Well, and it's interesting. The one thing that I think the first thing that really amazed me when I first owned a little grooming shop, I didn't groom, but the value of the proper bathing. I had no concept, but my groomers would tell me, the most critical part of this is getting it bathed and brushed out appropriately. Is that? Would you guys agree?
I would agree. Yes.
Yeah. And people don't think about that. They think, well, you got to get a bath, but that's a big process. It's almost like making rice. Sushi rice is the most important part of sushi, is you have to know how to make the rice correctly. So
what somebody told me, when you think about this, when you groom your dog, they say, when somebody picks their dog, I mean, they look at their dog, so there's first this visual, and they probably want to see if their nails are cut because they're terrified to do that. But then what they do often is they kiss their dogs. They kiss them on top of the head, or at least they pet them. So they're saying, make sure that this head, which is one of the hardest parts to wash, is really clean, because the person is going to is probably going to kiss their dog. Mm-hmm. So you can't, it seems silly, but it's,
our wives
you
would
have to think about
perform
that.
better. We wouldn't have to kiss the dogs.
Well,
that's the way it is.
I am not a dog groomer, but I learned how to groom a standard poodle, and I actually groomed that. Yeah. But I loved it. I wouldn't want to be a groomer like all day. I wouldn't want to have to do dog after dog. But to just do that one dog, my dog, I thought it was just completely. It's like therapy.
Yeah, I can see that. I can really see that. So I wanted to ask Alan. Here we are. We got all this stuff. Do you guys, by the way, offer Can people come in and get toenail trims that are just kind of not like a grooming appointment, but just come in? Do you have that service all the time?
We do. Okay. We do.
So they just call you and say, I need my nails redone?
And that can even be a walk-in service.
Okay, good.
They can make an appointment, or they can walk in for that service.
Very good.
And besides doing full groomings, we also do maintenance brushing. So if someone has a shepherd and it's shedding really bad, and they get a bath and it's good, but 2 weeks later, they can come in and we just brush it out. We don't have to bathe it again.
What do you do for skunk exposure? Because, there's a million things that are supposed to work. And
tomato sauce is
right.
But there are products out there, too, for de-skunking.
That actually,
dogs,
that do it pretty effectively.
And we have one of those products. I don't remember the name. But
And then how do you integrate all that with your veterinary relationships? I know that you guys are all over the place. There's a ton of veterinarians, but you guys are the first line of defense for ear problems, skin conditions, anal gland conditions. So do your people, are they trained to communicate back with the owner or to the vet of order? How does that work?
And that's, I tell all of our staff, we're not veterinarians. Do not diagnose anything. If you see something, don't tell the owner this is blah, blah, blah.
Just say,
tell
check
the
this
owner,
out.
Take a look at this. This is what I saw. Mm-hmm. Talk to your veterinarian and find out what's going on.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because if you try we're not veterinarians.
Right.
Don't diagnose. Right. That's simple.
And we're not groomers or trainers.
So I have a question or something I'd like you to comment on. as you said, a lot of your trainers come from the Tom Rowe School, and that's a pretty rough school. And a lot of the breeds that these guys really like are like Malinois, and Malinois probably be number one, and
Pitties.
Pits. But do you have a breed restriction for boarding at Kennelwood?
We do. We don't want fighting breeds.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a fighting breed that's been bred to...
And I can't tell you how many times I've written a letter, this boxer.
Yes,
I'm the guy you don't
right.
want. You don't want to see that letter.
In this
boxer.
terrier mix.
Yeah.
Yes.
When they're actually pit bulls. But, I personally, there are certain breeds that are scary for me, because they've been mismanaged or misdesigned and over time. Like, I really think that some shepherds can be really scary, more so than a lot of pits. Now, sometimes I see the pits are either really bad to people or they're really bad to animals. It's kind of like an either-or kind of scenario. But
sometimes they're good with both.
Or bad with both.
Right. And I take a little bit of exception to that, but I think I really understand it. Because even for me, when I see some of these breeds, and maybe it's just I've gotten to this point in my life where I'm like, you know what, you don't have enough money to pay me to do this.
And it's a liability. They have insurance. A business has insurance, but it's still a big liability. People can get hurt. The animals can get hurt. And then it only takes one negative,
Right.
I always look at things like Yelp and stuff, and I go, one negative, you never get to defend yourself. You're just, whatever service you're in, it doesn't matter if it's animal related, they either get you or they don't get you.
Well,
So-
how do you feel about all these services where people have their own pet sitting service and they go to people's homes? Do you care, or do you think there's enough room for everybody?
Well, I do care. I wish they'd stop that.
Yeah.
But they're not going to.
And there's no way to police it.
Right.
Yeah, there's no way to
I
certify
think
it.
what I resent the most is that we're licensed by the state of Missouri, and they come in and inspect us.
Right.
They don't do that for someone who's running an in-home.
This is like the
program.
Uber, the yellow cab Uber argument. But it's true. I mean,
They get to play by different rules
Right.
than we do.
and you have a bigger investment in what you do.
Yeah.
And-
Well, I can certainly see why somebody would want to do that, but the only thing, and for me it overrides the others, is that your dog or cat, other than that one cat that went up in the ceiling, is not going to get lost if you have them at a boarding facility. My fear is always that door would open and at home and the dog
And
or
that's
cat takes
that's
off.
when we hire employees, we say the number one thing we want to do: return their pet back to the owner
Right,
when they
that's
come
right.
to get it.
Big point. Well, we're going to break, and we'll come back with our recap session. It's been wonderful. I'm just learning so much, and Alan, you've been a wonderful guest.
And he has a few kind of cool events that he
Good.
should mention.
Well, as Dr. Doug of Dr. Doug's All Things Animal Radio
It's
Show.
so hard to get all those words.
But we'll be back in just a moment.
Cat dog. Alone in the world with a little cat dog.
Here comes Clifford, everyone loves Clifford, the biggest, reddest dog in history.
Welcome back, everybody. We're in our final segment, visiting with, of course, Alan Jones, co-owner and president of Kennelwood Pet Resorts, and it's been really interesting to hear his history in association with the organization, and also, talking to Cindy, who used to work there. We don't know the circumstances behind her leaving. She claims she left on her own, but that's another whole show.
I want to know, Alan, if you have like a tattoo, do you have like a little Kennelwood emblem tattoo close
On
to your
his
heart?
tush, on his tush.
I would think it'd be nearer to his heart.
I think Alan has a couple of events he can share with our audience that related to Kennelwood. Let's hear them.
We do. We have an adoption event at our St. Peter's location.
Okay.
That's August 12th, and that will be from 11 to 3 p.m.
So are you allowing people to come in?
We work with
programs?
groups. We
Okay.
work with rescue groups.
Good.
And so we'll have 4 or 5 different rescue groups. Some are breed rescue groups, so they'll have one breed. Others are
Just
whatever.
Right.
So we'll have a lot of different dogs there available for adoption.
Cool.
And to learn more about that, they can go to
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
www.kennelwood.com.
Good. I was just going to ask, no cats will be at that particular...
No.
Okay.
Just be dogs.
Okay, good. And what else do you have cooking?
Then September 23rd and 24th is something called Pedal the Cause that I think most people in St. Louis have heard about. It's a bike ride, but it raises money for cancer research. And we've had a number of employees that we've lost to cancer. I've lost my wife to cancer.
I'm sorry.
So we are very much interested in helping them. We sell dog treats for about 3 months before the event, so we'll start pretty quickly here. And we sell Riley's organic dog treats for Pedal the Cause. And last year we raised $12,000 selling dog treats. This year we're shooting for $15,000.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I've met the owner, the co-founder of Riley's. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
Really nice.
Yeah. Good product.
You know, it would be fun. It's probably not doable, but if you had a segmented run from one Kennelwood to another Kennelwood, and then you can do it in stages, like every month for a series of months, join this part of the run or the biking and stuff like that, and then you'd be connecting and you have...
There you go.
There you go.
New idea.
I'm such a great marketing guy.
Forward thinking. Really appreciate that.
I wanted to thank you again. You've been wonderful. It's great to have you, and there's a million reasons to have you back, and your staff.
I know he has about
divisions.
500 more stories. I do.
I know.
this.
I'd like to just do one whole day of just stories, let them ramp up. And, of course, Cindy, it's great. If anybody's looking for training support outside of Kennelwood, they can always reach Cindy at 636-530-1808, which is the same number of our veterinary clinic, Clarkson Wilson Veterinary Clinic. And we do, again, have a wonderful Kennelwood facility just up the sidewalk. And we've always had a good relationship. It's never been an issue, so I love having them there. And I want to thank the whole community for listening. And I think that's the big thing I wanted to say to you, that what your facility brings together is a community of like-minded pet lovers. And the more service, the more the community builds upon itself. And I guess that's also a great way to build, and I don't know what you do program-wise, but from a marketing perspective, if you can take advantage more of that community, everybody that knows, oh yeah, I go to Kennelwood, that's why, that's great. That would be a great way to market.
And there's a new service coming. Yet to be disclosed.
Yeah,
We
which
can't
we
talk about
don't
it.
know.
I'll come back for that.
Okay, good. We could torture him, but we'll let him just come back. It'll be a lot easier. Again, I want to thank you. It's been wonderful. And everybody, let's get your contact one more time for everybody.
It's the main number is 314-429-2100.
Okay.
The website is www.kennelwood.com, and we are on Facebook.
And your 5 services, 6 services, run them past us really quickly.
We do boarding, grooming, training, pet supplies, invisible fence, and doggy daycare.
Wonderful, wonderful. You're a great man. Thanks again, and I just want to thank our audience for listening. And if you have any questions, give us a call or talk to you soon. Thank you.
Go, Clifford, go, Clifford.